The tragedy begins when the 30-story tower turns into a tomb and the ghost of Chinese steel appears in Thailand. The rumbling sound rips through the air. The 30-story building, a symbol of modernity and development, suddenly collapses in just a few seconds. Smoke and dust fill the air. Cries for help echo among the rubble. People nearby only have time to scream in despair. Earthquake? But that earthquake was not strong enough to collapse a solid building. The problem lies inside, in the steel bars that seem silent but are the trigger. Immediately, an investigation was opened, and then a familiar name appeared. Xi'an, a Chinese steel company. No one expected that the name involved in more than 7,400 fake tax invoices from 2015 to 2017 was directly connected to the collapsed building. According to official information from the Thai Revenue Department, this company used more than 7,400 fake tax invoices during the period of 2015 to 2017. They are suspected of using fraudulent methods to illegally deduct taxes, causing losses of up to nearly 1 billion baht. But what is more terrible is that steel from this company was used in the recently collapsed construction, and it is very likely that it was the cause of the tragedy. The case is so serious that it has been transferred to the Thai Department of Special Investigation. A comprehensive investigation is underway, and the individuals involved will be summoned. But what makes international public opinion even more concerned is that this is not the first time Chinese steel has appeared in construction disasters. The rotten roots of fake steel scandals were born in mainland China. In China itself, the country has faced a series of tragic building collapses, where substandard and counterfeit steel was identified as one of the leading causes. 2020 Sinja Express Hotel collapse. In May 2020, the Sinja Express Hotel in Quanzhou, which was being used as a COVID-19 quarantine facility, collapsed completely. The incident killed 29 people and injured 42. Investigations later determined that the building had been illegally renovated and used substandard materials, including substandard steel. 2022 Changsha Building Collapse. On April 29, 2022, a building in Changsha City collapsed, burying dozens of people and killing 54. The cause was illegal construction, floor extensions, and especially weak materials, among which poor quality steel was identified as contributing to the disaster. Gymnasium incident in Xi'an in 2023. In mid-July 2023, the roof of a gymnasium at Xi'an High School in Heilongjiang Province suddenly collapsed while dozens of students were present, killing 11 students. A weak roof structure, the use of poor quality steel, and incorrect construction procedures were the direct causes. Lotus Riverside, Shanghai in 2009. A 13-story building in Shanghai completely tilted overnight. Cause? Weak foundation due to the use of substandard materials, steel that was too thin, and sloppy construction. Fortunately, there were no residents living there at the time. Cross-border detonation when fake Chinese steel becomes a silent global killer. The collapse of a 30-story building in Thailand has set off alarm bells not only for Southeast Asia but also for the whole world. Chinese steel, when fraudulently produced, can become a silent killer. SK Yuan Company, with more than 7,426 fake tax invoices from 2015 to 2017, caused financial losses of more than 200 million baht, and this figure could reach 1 billion baht if fines are included. But the biggest damage is not in money, but in human lives. The type of steel that Xi'an provided was identified as one of the factors contributing to the 30-story building collapsing completely after just a few minutes of shaking from a moderate earthquake. This has Thai construction experts wondering, how many other buildings across Asia are silently harboring similar deadly risks? Not only in Thailand, cheap steel from China has also appeared in Nigeria, Bangladesh, Laos, and Cambodia, where large projects are competing to grow with costs cut to the maximum. International engineers have pointed out that some batches of steel imported from China have substandard hardness, poor elasticity, and are often thinned, reducing their load-bearing capacity by up to 40% compared to design standards. This means that a heavy rain, a mild earthquake, or even a slight overload can cause the structure to collapse. Steel bars, which are considered the backbone of a structure, if stripped of their cores, will turn any building into a trap. The problem is no longer simply counterfeit steel, but a crime wrapped in numbers and contracts. Blood flows right on their roofs. The Chinese people, their own first victims. What is heartbreaking is that the first drops of blood from fake steel fell right on the country that produced it. The Chinese people, who should be living in safe homes, are struggling to endure under concrete ceilings that can collapse at any moment. They live in invisible fear that today it is the house next door, tomorrow it could be their own. Their children study in classrooms where just a strong wind, a heavy rain, or simply a silent crack can turn into a disaster. The elderly tremble as they climb the stairs made of rusty steel. Workers are afraid that the factory floor will collapse right on their heads. The pain is not only about material loss, it is the despair of losing loved ones. The cries beside the rubble, the panicked eyes of children in the middle of the night, awakened by the sound of cracks.
On the 2nd, President Trump announced the implementation of global reciprocal tariffs. The CCP immediately retaliated, and the White House responded by repeatedly raising tariffs. On the 9th, the White House confirmed to our reporter that the total new tariffs imposed on the CCP had risen to 145%, effective immediately. On the evening of April 10th, U.S. time, China announced retaliatory measures and imposed additional tariffs of up to 125% on U.S. imports. Experts believe the CCP misjudged both the tariffs and Trump and fell into his trap. Xi'an, a professor at the Xi'an School of Business at the University of South Carolina, said, "Trump is targeting only the CCP. Reciprocal tariffs on other countries have been suspended for 90 days. Trump actually said that if other countries are willing to cooperate and negotiate with the United States, he is open to resuming normal trade relations." Now, it seems the CCP's actions have escalated the situation, which shows that the United States has indeed entered a trade war with the CCP. Taiwanese macroeconomist Wu Jialong said, Xi Jinping's team may have believed that Trump's tariffs would trigger inflation, rising unemployment, or financial market turmoil in the U.S., which would put political pressure on him. They likely thought this would tie Trump's hands, forcing him to concede. Based on that assumption, China chose to confront him directly, but the negative consequences they expected for Trump have not materialized, so this response to the tariffs seems to have been a misjudgment. Benson also said that the reason for imposing tariffs on the CCP is because the CCP's economic policies pose a global threat, and that it will now face pressure from a new round of tariff increases. Wu Jialong added, Xi Jinping's team misjudged both Trump and his tariff strategy. They really believed business leaders could pressure Trump into backing down. Now it seems they've walked right into a trap. Trump dug a hole for Xi Jinping, and now everyone can see that Xi is no match for him. If this perception takes hold, and the CCP dreams of forming global alliances to confront the U.S., that dream will be shattered. Xi Jinping wants to form an alliance with neighboring countries to confront the U.S.-Chinese president. Xi Jinping said that China will strengthen ties with its neighbors in his first public remarks amid the escalating trade war with the United States. At a foreign affairs work conference on relations with neighboring countries held on April 8th and 9th, Xi emphasized that China would enhance cooperation with its neighbors by properly managing differences and promoting cooperation on supply chains. This was the first public statement by a Chinese leader since April 2nd, when trade tensions between Beijing and Washington escalated due to U.S. President Donald Trump's announcement of reciprocal tariffs. During a high-level meeting with representatives from neighboring countries, Xi said that building a community with a shared future would be a priority in China's diplomacy with its neighbors. China's relations with its neighbors are at their best in modern history, a statement from the official Xinhua news agency said. On April 14th, Xi Jinping will begin a visit to several Asian countries, including Vietnam, Malaysia, and Cambodia. In the context of the U.S.-China trade war, including President Trump's imposition of a 145% tariff on Chinese exports to the U.S., along with a 90-day extension of tariff negotiations with countries such as Vietnam, this visit could have a significant impact on many Chinese companies operating in Vietnam. These include companies that disguise Chinese goods as made in Vietnam to evade U.S. tariffs. Perhaps Mr. Xi hopes to use this visit to advance his goals. Recently, Vietnam unexpectedly announced the discovery of 30 tons of gold reserves located in the same region where rare earth elements were discovered in the northwest just days before Xi's trip. Vietnam currently holds about 22 million tons of rare earth reserves, second only to China globally. However, its annual mining output remains low at only 1,000 tons of ore due to a lack of environmentally friendly mining technology and deep processing capabilities. It can be said that Vietnam plays a significant role on the current geopolitical chessboard that China hopes to capture and influence. Could it be that China is attempting to form an alliance to confront the U.S. in the ongoing tariff war? On April 5th, the United States officially began to impose a 10% base tariff on all imported goods. That morning, President Trump posted on his social media platform, Truth Social, that this is an economic revolution and that the United States is bringing back jobs and businesses with unprecedented strength. Current investment has exceeded $5 trillion and is still growing rapidly. He called for persistence. The United States will eventually win. The final result will be historic, and the United States will become stronger. In addition, Trump specifically named the CCP, pointing out that the CCP has suffered a heavy blow in this tariff war. He said,
"The CCP situation is much worse than that of the United States. It is not at the same level at all."
After Trump announced an additional 34% reciprocal tariff on China, previously 20%, bringing the total to 54%, the CCP announced a 34% retaliatory tariff on American goods, as well as other countermeasures. Trump disagreed with this. He said that the CCP made the wrong move. They panicked. The retaliatory tariffs are something the CCP cannot afford. Many economic experts and international observers are confused about the CCP's countermeasures because, in normal international trade, in the game between buyers and sellers, the buyer is usually the dominant party in the negotiation. The CCP is an export-oriented economy that mainly makes money by selling goods. As a buyer, the United States has stronger negotiating power. Let me explain here. In 2024, China's imports from the United States will be about $162 billion, while the United States will import about $440 billion from China. The difference between the two countries is $278 billion. So China is the seller and the United States is the buyer. Therefore, some economists bluntly pointed out the CCP's pain point. A group of Party B who can only sell goods will never challenge Party A who has money in their hands. Some people expressed puzzlement and did not understand why the CCP would make such a bad move. Some comments pointed out that for other countries, negotiations are a trade-off of interests, but the CCP is different. It dares not make concessions. First, because the United States and China have different ideologies, the CCP is worried that if it blindly obeys the United States, it will be assimilated by the United States and affect its rule. Second, the CCP is worried that once it makes concessions, its allies will turn to the United States and no longer stand in the same camp, affecting its regime. At present, the CCP's official media is vigorously promoting that the United States has angered the world and wants to take the opportunity to win over allies. It even bizarrely believes that the CCP can replace the United States as the leader of free trade. Chu Wanjun, a professor of finance at Northeastern University in Boston, East America, said that China's foreign trade is carried out in the form of tax rebates, which is not a market economy behavior in itself. In addition, the RMB has not yet been internationalized, and it is impossible to lead global free trade. Lin Zili, an associate professor at Tunghai University, said that the global reserve currency share of the RMB is only 2.2%. The CCP is unwilling to provide public goods for free trade, let alone lead the WTO, and it is far from being a leader. Taiwanese economist Wu Jialong further explained that the United States is a truly open market, with a huge trade deficit every year, which allows others to make money, so it is the boss. He satirized the CCP, saying that it has a huge trade surplus and wants to be a leader in free trade. Isn't this a joke? In fact, except for the CCP, most countries hope to negotiate with the United States to resolve trade frictions. For example, Argentina, Israel, Vietnam, and other countries have expressed their willingness to reduce or even cancel tariffs. The Japanese Prime Minister expressed his willingness to go to Washington in person for negotiations. The European Union expressed its willingness to cooperate with the United States, and the Italian Prime Minister also hopes to have frank communication with the United States. Trump told reporters,
Now, there are countries calling us every day, hoping to start negotiations. As long as the conditions are good enough, we can certainly talk.
Judging from the measures implemented by Trump, he seems to be encircling the CCP. How does he do it? Let's see what the experts say. Lynn Zealy said that this time, Trump learned from previous experience and strangled the CCP's retreat. In Trump's previous term, the United States took a single move against the CCP, but the CCP successfully circumvented tariffs by washing the origin, such as re-exporting goods from Vietnam to the United States and even strengthening cooperation with third countries. This time, Trump expanded the scope of tariffs to the world, not only directly firing at the CCP, but also imposing tariffs on allied countries, with the goal of excluding the CCP from the global supply chain and preventing them from circumventing U.S. restrictions through third parties. He said that the tit-for-tat between the U.S. and China has already begun, and there is almost no turning back. Now the question is, if the CCP chooses not to negotiate with the United States but to fight to the end, what consequences will it face in the future? Citi believes that if other conditions remain unchanged, that is, if there is almost no trade diversion, the impact of raising tariffs by 54% on China is about a 2.4 percentage point reduction in economic growth and a 15.4 percentage point reduction in exports. Last year, Macquarie Group Limited, a well-known Australian financial group, estimated that if the U.S. tariff level on China reaches 60%, China's GDP growth rate may decrease by 2 percentage points. International Investment Bank UBS Group AG predicts that such a tariff level may halve China's annual economic growth rate. Wu Jialong believes that the CCP obviously does not want to return to the Deng Xiaoping era. He said that Deng Xiaoping expressed his loyalty to the United States, and the United States supported his reform and opening up. With the support of the United States, China could talk about the rise of a great power. Without the support of the United States, it would not rise. Wu Jialong. The CCP is now ready to jump into the pit, and the result of jumping into the pit is to regress to the period before reform and opening up. If it continues like this, the Chinese economy will stall and lose momentum. In the future, there will be social unrest and regime change. Tariffs make trading partners lean towards Beijing? Trump? No. When asked if he was worried that tariffs would make trading partners lean towards Beijing, U.S. President Trump said he was not worried at all because partners would not want Beijing to control them. On Monday, April 7th, the president met with visiting Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu at the White House, the first foreign leader to meet with Trump on tariffs. Israel has agreed to quickly eliminate its trade surplus and trade barriers with the United States, while eliminating tariffs on the United States. According to the United Nations Comtrade International Trade Database, Israel's exports to the United States in 2024 were $17.36 billion, and the United States exports to Israel were $14.79 billion. The president said on Monday that U.S. tariffs could be permanent or negotiated at the same time because the United States also needs countries to open their markets. Then he used China as an example, saying that during his first term, he almost reached an agreement with China, and China agreed to open its market. But the final result was very disappointing. According to the text of the agreement at the time, China promised to purchase an additional $200 billion in U.S. products and services over the next 2 years, of which $50 billion were agricultural products. Trump wants China to open its market and compete freely. Trump said that although he reached the agreement, it was not what he wanted. The agreement I wanted was these, plus China's open market, allowing American companies to enter China and compete with other countries in China's huge population market. But at the last minute, the agreement was terminated and we only signed a part of the agreement, the president revealed. In addition to tariffs, there are many other issues. Tariffs themselves are still very important. There are also things like opening up markets for countries that were originally completely closed, he added. The president said, Communist China is basically a closed country. They will impose tariffs, so if you want to sell cars or other products, no one will buy them at all because, after adding taxes and fees, the price will be ridiculously high. He said that this situation is not just with China, but also with many other countries. If there are no tariffs, no one will want to negotiate. We will make fair and favorable agreements with every country. If there is no way, we don't have to have any dealings with them. They will not be allowed to participate in the U.S. market, the president added. Trump said that he respects China very much but cannot accept Beijing continuing its unfair trade policies or practices from the past. We only have this one chance and no other president will do what I am doing, he said. The president then added that now almost every country that has been tariffed wants to come to the United States for negotiations. If I hadn't done what I have done in the past few weeks, no one would want to negotiate.